At dawn on April 23rd, 1973, a man stands inside a phone booth in Pueblo, Colorado. He has driven over 1,000 miles to make this call. He has the right number. He has the right person on the line.
Santa Cruz Police Department.
He keeps telling them
she's dead.
What he has done.
I killed her.
And they keep telling him to stop wasting their time.
Santa Cruz Police Department. Look, if you're playing a game and
Edmund Kemper, don't hang up.
This is Edmund Kemper. He is 24 years old, and he has just killed his own mother. For hours, he has been trying to confess, not just to her murder, but to every other person he has killed. At first, the police did not believe him. But once they did, it was finally over. Because to Ed Kemper, his mother was the reason for all of it.
It had to stop. It had to stop. Once my mother was dead, there was almost a cathartic process at that point. I got physically ill right then.
Are you still there?
When she died.
I need to put a
And I murdered her.
right?
But the real question is,
Hello? Ed, can you hear me?
was she? To understand what Edmund Kemper did, you have to understand how he was made. And to understand how he was made, you have to start with two people who probably should never have had a child together. His father, Edmund Emil Kemper, Jr., was a World War II veteran. He'd survived the Pacific Theater as part of the 1st Special Service Force, the unit they called the Devil's Brigade. He'd volunteered for what was, at the time, considered a suicide assignment. His mother, Clarnell Elizabeth Kemper, sharp, loud, intelligent, furious. His father, years later, would say something most veterans never say. He said the suicide missions in wartime were nothing compared to living with Clarnell.
She wanted him to change this. She wanted him to change that, and he couldn't handle that. After 13 years, he'd had enough.
In 1957, when Ed was 8 years old, his parents separated. 2 years later, they divorced. His mother won custody of the 3 children. She moved them from California to Helena, Montana. Clarnell Kemper was a chronic alcoholic with a severe personality disorder, patterns consistent with what we today call borderline personality disorder. She screamed. She compared him to his sisters. She told him he was worthless, that no woman would ever want him, that he was just like his father, that he disgusted her. Then, when he was around 10 years old, she became convinced he posed an unspeakable danger to his younger sister. There was no evidence, no incident, no witness. So, to get rid of him, she locked him up in the basement.
Get down there!
We lived in a house where there was a basement, and there was an old furnace in the basement that had been converted from burning coal to burning and coal and wood to burning gas. And that was, it had a central heating system with your typical radiators. And if you've ever lived in a home like that, you know, you have the binging, the clang, the pop, the rattles, the weird sounds in the night that can be spooky to a kid.
The basement was unfinished, cold concrete, a single naked bulb on a pull cord, a gas furnace that ran loud and hot, no bathroom, a small bed. The basement door opened from the kitchen. To get out, Ed would have had to come up through the kitchen, through her.
Oh, you useless little shit! Stop it! Let me out!
I had to go down to the basement. And an 8-year-old child had a tough time differentiating the reason in that. Why am I going to the basement? I'm going to hell, they're going to heaven. And a single naked bulb goes on down at the bottom of these stairs. I'm now cut off from the house, cut off from them. I walk this full length into the darkness, and I've got this horrible terror going on inside of me. And this is every night. This is every day, because it's pitch black down there, no windows.
He was a child, and he was being told every day by the only adult in the house that he was a monster who needed to be hidden away from his own family. So he started to believe it. And here's where this story becomes more complicated than a simple narrative of abuse. Most children who suffer what Ed Kemper suffered do not become predators. They become depressed adults. They become survivors. They don't, statistically, become serial killers. So why did he? Modern neurocriminology offers a framework called the diathesis stress model. The idea is straightforward. Some people are born with a biological vulnerability that only becomes destructive when activated by environmental triggers. The wiring is loaded at birth. The environment pulls the trigger. By every later assessment, Ed Kemper was born with a deficit in something researchers call affective empathy, the capacity to feel what someone else is feeling. He can recognize fear on a face. He just doesn't feel it back. Listen to him in this interview. He talks about killing his mother. He cries. But notice who the emotion is about.
I still loved my mother, and it's hard for somebody to comprehend that you murder your mother through love. It isn't a rational process. It's a very painful process.
The woman he killed isn't the subject of his sentence. He is. This deficit, this missing echo, isn't learned. It isn't chosen. It's biological, possibly genetic. So, picture the equation. A boy born without the brakes most of us are born with, and a mother who teaches him there's nothing worth breaking for. She didn't create him, but she activated him. She shaped him. She gave it a target. She loaded the gun. She put it in his hand. By age 10, Ed had buried the family cat alive. He covered it with dirt while it was still breathing. When it died, he dug it up and decapitated it. By age 13, he killed a second cat. This one belonged to his older sister, Susan. He was jealous of the affection she got. The cat was a stand-in. He killed it with a kitchen knife. He kept the pieces in a suitcase and hid it inside his closet until his mother found them.
We had a cat, and he was mad at Angel. And so he was swinging cut off his head and came in. And he wrapped the cat piece in his bathroom, and then he put it in the suitcase.
I could put it on an incident. I mean, my father chopping the heads off of our 2 pet chickens and my mother insisting that I eat them for dinner. You know, we could say it was something that simple. I don't think it was. Now, my dad heads out back with a hatchet. I got on my bike and I tried to stop it. I remember that. I got on the bike, rode around the block.
A father with a hatchet. A mother who made him eat what was killed. A child who tried to ride away. He doesn't say this is where it started. He says he doesn't think it was something that simple. But he keeps coming back to it. He cut the heads off his sister's dolls. He cut their hands off. He'd play games with her called gas chamber and electric chair. He'd have his sister tie him to a chair, ask her to flip an imaginary switch, and then writhe like he was being executed. On one occasion, when his older sister teased him about a female teacher, Ed said something his sister would remember for the rest of her life.
At one point, your sister teased you also about a woman school teacher. And you said if I wanted to kiss her, I'd have to kill her first.
Yeah, that had been
At 14, Ed ran away. He hitchhiked from Montana to Van Nuys, California, and showed up on his father's doorstep. For the first time in years, he felt safe. But it wouldn't last. Within weeks, the same father Ed had hitchhiked 1,000 miles to reach would tell him to his face that he didn't want him either. And what happened next was the first time in his life Ed tested the answer to a question he'd been asking himself since he was 10.
I wanted my father's love. I wanted his approval. I wanted his recognitions. And we all got very greedy and desperate at that time, so we fought each other a lot. And it was a lot of friction, and he couldn't handle that, so he got rid of me.
Ed's father had remarried. His new wife had a son. There wasn't room for him. Ed stayed for a few weeks. He's described this period as one of the only times in his adolescence he ever felt accepted. Then, his stepmother told his father she didn't want Ed in the house. His father didn't refuse her. He arranged for Ed to live with his own parents, Ed's paternal grandparents, on a remote ranch outside North Fork, California, in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. For the second time in his life, Ed Kemper had been told by an adult he loved that he was too much to handle. He was sent away again. His grandfather, Edmund Kemper Sr., was retired. By Ed's own description, declining and slow, but not unkind. He taught Ed how to handle a .22 rifle. He took him hunting. Ed has said in multiple interviews that his grandfather was the only adult in his entire childhood he ever felt close to. His grandmother, Maud Huey Kemper, was something else. She wrote children's books. She kept the house spotless. She corrected him constantly. She wouldn't let him leave the property. In Ed's own words, she was a domineering, controlling woman who emasculated both him and his grandfather. In other words, she reminded him of his mother.
I started developing the fantasies toward her from my mother, killing her. And in the decapitation fantasies were even there. They were in place by then already. And
What were those fantasies?
what were they?
Yes.
Possessing the severed heads of women.
Ed Kemper was now 15, 6'4", already larger than his grandfather. And on August 27th, 1964, the tension between him and his grandmother finally boiled over. He and his grandmother had been arguing all morning. He was so done with her. He had enough of her. He became so angry that he retrieved the .22 rifle his grandfather had given him. His grandmother was just sitting at the kitchen table. He shot her in the back of the head. But he wasn't done. He shot her again and again. She died instantly. But the killing didn't stop there. Ed went to the kitchen drawer. He took out a kitchen knife. He stabbed his grandmother's body. This is the first documented appearance of what would become his signature, violence that continues past the point of necessity.
I shot her twice in the head, once in the back. There was a relief at doing that, straightening out at the people that was hurting the most.
His grandfather had been out grocery shopping. He came back to the ranch a short time later. Ed was waiting. He shot his grandfather in the driveway.
And it made it worse to be on top of a mountain. I was literally on top of a mountain when it happened.
And I sensed everybody in the world just stopping what they were doing, turning around, saw what I did, and are coming to get me. And I knew I was paranoid at that moment. I knew anybody that came up there and gave me a funny look or a fishy eye or quizzical look, I'd have blown their brains out thinking they were coming to get me. And if it had been in a city, I would have been a mass murderer at age 15.
In every interview he's ever given about that day, Ed has claimed he killed his grandfather, in his own words, so he wouldn't have to see what I did to Grandma. He framed it as mercy. It wasn't. He admitted later he shot his grandmother because he wondered how it would feel. He shot his grandfather, the only adult he ever felt close to, because he knew the man would be angry about what he had just done. There was no mercy. Just a 15-year-old eliminating a witness. What's not in dispute is what Ed did next. He called his mother. She told him to call the police. He did. He waited at the house. When the sheriff arrived, Ed was sitting calmly on the porch. He was taken into custody. And the California justice system immediately ran into a problem. Ed was 15. The state of California wasn't equipped to know what to do with him. He was committed to Atascadero State Hospital, a maximum security psychiatric facility for the criminally insane. He'd spend just under 5 years there. And here, the institutional system performed its second great failure of his life. Atascadero was a serious facility. Clinical staff, regular evaluations, standardized testing. They tested Ed's IQ. He scored 145. That's well into the genius range. The problem was, Ed Kemper was an extraordinarily good student of his own pathology.
I started out sharpening pencils at 17, where I was 19. I worked my way through the giving out the tests, scoring them, filing them.
Read that again. The teenager who had murdered his own grandparents was now administering psychiatric tests to other inmates. According to multiple sources, including his own claims, he helped develop new scales for the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, the standard psychological test used to identify dangerous patients in America. Ed Kemper was learning the rubric of the test that would later be used to evaluate him.
No, because I was really itching to get out. I had to do every little thing right.
He learned which answers the psychiatrists wanted. He learned the language of recovery. He learned to perform sanity. By 1969, when he was 20 years old, he'd convinced enough evaluators that he was no longer a danger to be considered for parole. In December 1969, at age 21, he was released. They sent him home. Specifically, they sent him home to live with his mother. The clinicians at Atascadero had been explicit. They'd recommended he have no contact with his mother again. The state ignored them. His juvenile record was sealed. No future employer, no future supervisor, no future law enforcement agency would ever see it. By any practical measure, Ed Kemper was a free man with no record, and he'd spent 5 years in a maximum security psychiatric hospital learning from inside the system exactly what he'd been doing wrong. For the next several months, Ed Kemper lived back at his mother's house. The arguments resumed almost immediately, the belittling, the fights. Then, in the spring of 1970, he got a job with the State of California Division of Highways. For the first time in his adult life, he had his own paycheck, and he used it to do the one thing his mother had spent over a decade telling him he could never do. He moved out. He rented an apartment in Alameda, 2 hours north of her. For the first and only time in his adult life, he was truly independent, but he also had a fantasy, one he'd been refining for over a decade. The way he started practicing it, the part most documentaries skip, isn't what you'd expect. Before Edmund Kemper ever killed a stranger, he gave roughly 150 women rides in his car, and he didn't hurt a single one of them.
Picked up probably 200 girls over the last 2 or 3 years.
I was 21 years old. Sexually, I was still about 15 years old, which is pretty arresting.
I wasn't impotent, but emotionally I was impotent. I was scared to death of failing in male-female relationships. I knew absolutely nothing about that whole area, even if just sitting down and talking with a young lady.
On tape, he said 200. Other sources say 150. The number isn't the point. What he did with them is nothing. He was learning, testing, finding out which kinds of women got in easily and which ones hesitated, what to say, how to sit, so a man his size didn't read as a threat.
I made that a challenge, almost like a chess game. And the more clever they got about checking me out ahead of time, the more clever I got about appearing innocuous and in a hurry and a businessman.
When he pulled over, he'd glance at his watch, let his face show a flicker of irritation, like she was the inconvenience. A man annoyed at having to stop is not a man you're afraid of. And while Santa Cruz police were consumed that same year by 2 other killers terrorizing the county, Edmund Kemper was hiding in plain sight, drinking with the cops at a bar across from the courthouse. On the afternoon of May 7th, 1972, 2 best friends were standing on a roadside in Berkeley, hitchhiking toward Stanford. They'd been friends since middle school. They were 18 years old. A yellow Ford Galaxy pulled up. Marianne Pesci was 18, a Fresno State freshman. She wanted to be a doctor. Anita Luchessa was 18, Marianne's best friend. She played the piano. She wanted to be a teacher. Kemper picked them up around 3. He didn't deviate from the rehearsal. He was friendly. He told them he worked at UCSC. He said he could take them most of the way. Then, instead of the freeway exit toward Palo Alto, he took the exit south. She told him to stop.
Please, man, just stop.
But he kept driving.
In May of '72, when that gun was pulled out, I launched it out, right? I had it under my leg, out of sight, parallel to my leg in the seat. It was something that had been thought out in fantasy, acted out, felt out hundreds of times before it ever happened.
He produced a 9mm pistol. To control them, the gun was the threat. It was never the weapon he intended to kill them with.
But the first young lady that was in the back seat was Marianne Pesh. I finally secured her. She argued a lot. She was dialoguing, trying to change up control of the situation. She had already decided I was in control. I was trying to gain control. I was convinced she was in control of it. So for about 20 minutes, we were arguing back and forth over what was going to happen.
He separated them. He handcuffed Marianne. What happened next, he described decades later in his own words. There is nothing a reenactment could add to this.
She didn't fall dead. When you stab someone, they leak to death. They lose blood pressure, and you stab them more and more and more. Stabbed her all over her back, and she even turned around. I stabbed her in the side and in the stomach once. I was trying to shut her up. And she ended up getting her throat cut. And I learned the term ear to ear, what that meant, because that's the way it went. And she went out of it completely right then. She lost consciousness and died probably just moments after that. But I just backed up out of the car. My hands are covered in blood, and I'm saying, oh, God, I did it. I don't believe it. I did it. Shit, I done it. Now I got to kill the other one.
There was nothing efficient about it, nothing controlled. He had rehearsed this 1,000 times in his head. He came back to the car with blood on his hands.
She sees the blood on my hands. What are you doing? She pulled back and she gasped.
And instead of attacking,
I said, your friend got smart with me. She think I broke her nose. You better come help. She's about to die.
he lied. He used her best friend's death as bait. He drove both bodies back to his apartment in Alameda. And on the way, something happened that almost ended it that night. A patrol officer pulled him over, a broken taillight. Both women were in the trunk. Kemper got out. He was calm. He was polite. He answered every question. The officer ran the stop, wrote it up, and sent him on his way. He never opened the trunk. Kemper drove the rest of the way home. What he did to their bodies, he did there. Not at the roadside. In private, where he had time, he dismembered both women. He decapitated them. He photographed what he had done. And he kept the photographs. Then he drove into the Santa Cruz Mountains and buried the rest. The head of one of them would not be found for years. The other was never recovered. Mary Ann Pesci and Anita Luchesa had been missing almost 2 weeks before anyone connected them to a crime. Aiko Koo was 15, a dance student. She'd studied ballet since she was a child. The evening of September 14th, 1972, she was trying to get to a dance class in San Francisco. Her bus didn't come. She didn't have time to wait, so she started hitchhiking. Kemper picked her up almost immediately. She pulled the door shut. Completely unaware, the man smiling next to her was already planning her death. What happened in that car was reconstructed later from what he told investigators, from what he told the people who spent years studying him. He pulled a gun on her to take control. He used tape to restrain her. He drove her somewhere quiet. And then he made a mistake that should have ended it right there. He got out of the car and he locked himself out. The keys were inside. The gun was inside. Under the seat she was sitting on.
One victim let me back in the car. I locked myself out. She opened the door for me. My gun was under the seat.
He has described what that moment did to him, not to her, to him.
And I panicked. I thought I just locked the car keys in it because I can't find them in my pocket. Oh my God, I locked them in the trunk. I'm kicking on the trunk lid and yanking on it. I started to run and I tripped over the gun that I'd had in my pants that I had totally forgotten was there. I stopped. I said, stop and think. I collected my wits.
That is the man she let back into the car, panicking, disorganized, tripping over his own weapon. If she had stayed where she was and done nothing, he could not have reached her. She didn't know that. She only knew that the man who had terrified her now seemed harmless. Locked out, needing help, she opened the door. He suffocated her. It was not quick. What he did to her body, he did after she was dead. Later, in private, he dismembered her. He photographed it and he kept her head. The next morning, he got into the same car with her remains still inside it and drove to Fresno for a court-ordered psychiatric appointment.
Good days after the death of Miss Koo, September 14, 1972, Kemper went to Fresno and was examined by two psychiatrists in his bid to have his juvenile record sealed. They reported him not a danger to society. One said he was in excellent psychiatric health.
2 days after he killed Aiko Koo, Edmund Kemper kept a court appointment in Fresno. He was there to be evaluated by two psychiatrists, a routine review tied to his parole. He was charming, articulate, calm. Both doctors submitted positive reports. One described him as in excellent psychiatric health, no danger to himself or to anyone else. Aiko Koo's remains were in the trunk of the car he had driven there. He had murdered 3 women by then, and they noticed nothing. Late in 1972, Kemper was hurt in a motorcycle accident. His arm was badly broken. He couldn't work. He couldn't make rent. He gave up the Alameda apartment. He moved back in with his mother, 24 years old, back in a child's position, in her house, under her voice. Cynthia Shaw was 18, a student at Cabrillo College. She wanted to be a teacher. The morning of January 8th, 1973, she was hitchhiking. Kemper picked her up.
I'm the fourth victim of a crime, Miss Shaw. She actually got back into the trunk under her own power. I had a cast on my left arm, it was broken. And I walked her back to the trunk of the car where I told her I was going to keep her undercover so that I could get her to my home where we could talk. But I didn't want neighbors seeing her coming to the house or leaving the house. And I made that sound realistic to her. So she didn't want to get in the trunk, but was willing to. When she got in the trunk, I shot her.
His weapon had changed. He'd bought a .22 caliber pistol. He shot her. And with the body in the trunk, he drove to his mother's duplex. His mother was asleep. He carried Cynthia's body inside and hid it in his bedroom closet. In the morning, after his mother left for work, he took the body out. He had sex with her corpse. Then he dismembered her in the bathtub. He kept her head.
It wasn't the aspect of killing them, that was the aspect of possessing their bodies afterwards. So it was almost after an effect, evicting someone from their human body.
They represented not what my mother was, but what she liked, what she coveted, what was important to her, and I was destroying it.
He buried Cynthia Shaw's head in the garden of his mother's house. He set it facing up toward his mother's bedroom window. The rest of her he threw from the cliffs along the coast highway. Pieces of her were found by people walking below. Early in 1973, Kemper came to the attention of a Santa Cruz detective. Not for murder, for a gun. He'd bought a .44 Magnum. The purchase generated a routine notification. When the detective ran the name, the system flagged a former mental patient with a juvenile homicide record. The record was sealed. The detail was thin, but it was enough to send 2 officers to take the gun back.
Now, they actually came to your house to pick up a handgun.
Sheriff's representatives. One of the detectives was upset because he heard I had a .44 Magnum pistol and was a convicted mental patient and killer. He came to take the gun away, and it was on he and his sergeant detective.
They came to the duplex. Kemper was outside working on his car. He stayed calm. Just a man interrupted while fixing his car. Under the front seat, he had a loaded .22, the gun he'd actually been killing with. The .44 they'd come for was in the trunk.
They were staking out the wrong house. It was across the street, and I'm playing around with the car, standing next to the gun in the trunk.
He didn't know which gun they knew about, so he did what he always did. He managed the conversation. He asked the right questions. He worked out exactly which weapon they had on record and surrendered only that one.
And I needed to find out what they were looking for, the murder weapon, the .22 automatic, or the .44 Magnum, and I don't want to advertise that I've got a whole bunch of guns. So I made a comment to divine between the two. And I said, "Joe, it's quite a little gun, isn't it?" And he retorted, "A .44 Magnum, I hope so." And I said, "Whew, okay," because that loaded .22 was under the front seat and guaranteed me an arrest right on the spot.
He handed over the .44. They never saw the .22. They never searched the car. But they didn't stay outside. Kemper led the detective inside, straight to his bedroom, where the belongings of two women he'd already killed were locked in a box in his closet.
I had the personal effects and identification of the last two co-eds that had been murdered about 2 months before, right next to the guns in the closet, in a box.
Could he have seen it?
No, but when he arrested me for having all those guns and went through the rest of the closet looking to see if there were any pistols or anything else, he couldn't have helped notice a purse, a book bag, and co-ed ID inside of those belonging to their two latest murder victims.
The detective drove away with the .44 Magnum, completely unaware of what he left behind. Kemper had done it again. He had looked law enforcement in the eye and completely outsmarted them in his own bedroom.
Sometimes I felt real cute inside at that point. And I fooled everybody so completely.
February 5th, 1973. Kemper drove onto the campus where his mother worked. Rosalind Thorpe was 23, a graduate student. Alice Liu was 20. By now, the police had warned students not to hitchhike.
Yeah, we used to hitchhike, but now it's not real safe to do it, so we don't.
Why did you quit?
Because of all the weird things that have been happening with the rapes and things like that.
None of it stopped him. The warnings told them what danger was supposed to look like. And nothing about Edmund Kemper looked like it.
My mother worked at the campus and I had an A sticker on my car, an obvious access day or night to the campus. I was picking up some very lovely young women.
The sticker was his mother's, the same woman who had told him for over a decade that no woman would ever want him, had handed him the one thing that made young women feel safe getting into his car. He picked up Rosalind first. A few minutes later, on the same road, he saw Alice walking and offered her a ride too. On a quiet stretch of campus road, he produced the pistol. He shot Rosalind. He shot Alice. He drove off campus with both of them dead in the car. He passed the campus checkpoint. The sticker got him through. The guard waved him out. He took them home to the duplex. He had sex with both of their bodies. He decapitated them. He photographed them. He dug the bullets out of their skulls so the rounds couldn't be traced. Then he scattered the remains along the coast. A week before he killed his mother, Kemper drove back to the place he'd started, Ashby Avenue in Berkeley, where he'd picked up his first two victims. He found two more young women, same age, same road, everything set to do it again. Then something happened that even he couldn't explain.
And I let him go. Everything went towards killing him, and I didn't. But I'm saying, wow, it's uncanny. It was almost like it was meant to be that way. And I said, wow, this gotta stop. And I let them out. They never even knew what was going on. I let them out. I would have gotten away with those two being murdered. I said, no, it's gotta stop. And a week later, I murdered my mother.
This is the question the film opened with. The one from the phone booth. Was she the reason? By April 1973, Kemper had been back in her house for months. In that time, He had killed 3 more women and brought every one of them home into the house where she slept. He had buried one of their heads in her own garden. She never noticed. She only ever noticed him.
My mother was a sick, angry, hungry, and very sad woman. I hated her, but I wanted to love my mother. And I watched the alcohol increase. I watched her social life drop off. I watched her get bizarre. She had terrible pain from her life, earlier life, her upbringing, a failed marriage with my father. I'm a constant reminder of that failure.
She told him he was disgusting. She told him no woman would ever want him. She told him not to be in the house when her colleagues came by. He has described what those final months in her house did to him. It's best heard in his own voice.
It was springtime. It was April. And for 2 months I hadn't killed. And I said, it's not going to happen to any more girls. It's got to stay between me and my mother. And I can't get away from her. We're still fighting. She's still belittling me. I'm like a puppet on a string, and I entertain her. She knows all my buttons, and I dance like a puppet with that pain.
The target he had spent 8 murders avoiding had become the only one left.
And that's when I decided I'm going to murder my mother. I knew a week before she died I was going to kill her. And she went out to a party, she got soused, she came home, went to sleep. I was woken up by that. Came out.
They argued. She told him he was worthless. She went to bed with a book.
And she said, oh, I suppose you're going to want to sit up all night and talk now. Shit. I looked at her, I said, no. Good night. And I knew I was going to kill her.
Early that morning, while she slept, he went into her room. He had a hammer. He beat her. Again, and over again. After she was dead, he kept going. He cut off her head and had sex with it. After all of that, he cut out her larynx, her voice. He forced it into the garbage disposal. The thing that had told him since he was 8 years old that he was worthless, that no woman would want him, that he was his father. He screamed at it for hours.
Because I'm not a lizard. I'm not from under a rock. I came out of her vagina. See? I came out of my mother. And in a rage, I went right back in. For 7 years, she said, I haven't had sex with a man because of you, my murderous son. It's one of our arguments. A 6 young woman dead because of the way she raises her son and the way her son is raised, the way he grows up. And what's her closing words? I suppose you want to sit up all night and talk. God, I wish I had.
Then he made a phone call. Sally Hallett was 59, Clarnell's closest friend. They worked together at the university. He called her the next evening. He told her his mother wanted to take her to dinner. A surprise. She came to the duplex. She stepped inside, expecting her friend. But he was ready. He was already waiting behind the door. He grabbed her neck from behind, pulled her in the air. He had her in a chokehold.
Got her in a chokehold and just picked her right up again. She was dead 5 minutes later after she walked in the door.
He had sex with her dead body and decapitated her too. He hid both women in a closet and left a note for the police. Then he got in his car and drove east. By the time anyone found them, he was already 1,000 miles away.
Upshot, just a few miles south of Santa Cruz, where this morning about 5:30, county sheriff's investigators found the bodies of two women, one of them decapitated and her right hand cut off. The bodies were found in closets in the apartment home of one of the victims, because, police say, the son of that victim called Santa Cruz police from Pueblo, Colorado this morning and told them about the murder.
He had 1,000 miles of road in front of him, a loaded gun, the skill to disappear completely. He didn't. He stopped at a phone booth at dawn, and he tried for hours to give himself up. Why he did that is the part of this story that changed what the FBI understood about killers forever. When they finally believed him, they found everything exactly where he said it would be. With his mother dead,
I'm all finished now.
the pressure was gone, the voice was gone, and without it, there was no reason left to kill, no reason to run, no reason to do anything at all. This is the answer to the question the film asked.
I'm looking back on it. I think they were surrogates. I was killing her, not them.
They were rehearsals, substitutes. He killed them to have what he wanted, their bodies, after death, because he could not let himself take the one body the rage was actually about. When he finally killed her, it was over. She didn't pull the trigger on any of them, but she was the reason the gun existed.
For the internal controls, 3PO was shocked. Behave yourself, R2. He finally chastised his companion. You're going to get us into trouble.
Subscribe to America's Most Evil for more documentaries on the most notorious serial killers and criminal cases in American history. Richard Ramirez attacked 30 people, murdered 13. The police didn't catch him. A neighborhood in East LA did, with a steel pipe. But that's not the part nobody can explain. The part nobody can explain is why women still fell in love with him on death row. Click on the Richard Ramirez video on the left. 2 officers drove right past the Zodiac killer on the street. They looked him in the eye and let him keep walking. 30 seconds is all it took for him to disappear forever. Click on Zodiac killer video on the right. Thanks for watching.